Thank you, Elaine, for that nice, warm welcome here. As Elaine mentioned, we're going to talk today on the webinar, SAP on Azure, and we're going to talk about some use cases that we've seen great success of running SAP Compute in the Azure cloud. And we'll also talk about how do we get these existing SAP systems into the Azure cloud and how we can tackle those tough challenges. As Elaine mentioned, I'm Patrick Ostrhaus. I'm Chief Technology Officer for Protera Technologies, and we are indeed a silver sponsor, a partner with Microsoft. And as Elaine mentioned at the top of the call, we're going to be co-presenting here at Sapphire. So we can talk more in detail. If you're there, please feel free to look us up, and we can show you the solution in person. Today's webinar contents, we're going to go through these topics. We're going to go through a quick introduction about Protera and what we do, and the experience to bring this content to you today, the knowledge that we've gained over the years to run compute on Azure for the SAP systems and customers. So we're going to go through the use cases, what we've seen great success in, and then where to look at with the SAP HANA journey for taking a look at this migration or implementation or options around that, and also how can we put the SAP systems, what versions, what operating systems, what solutions from SAP can run and are certified by Azure. And then we're going to take a look for companies that are looking to migrate existing systems. We're going to provide a checklist for what has to be considered and all the planning that has to take place for that migration to occur successfully. And lastly, we're going to finish off with some real case studies on the companies that have migrated already and companies that have been live on Azure for many, many months. So a little bit overview of Protera. We've been in business for nearly 20 years. We're headquarters in Chicago, where I'm at today. We have offices around the world. We have offices in Europe, Asia Pac, Latin America, and we have people in many countries, regional offices, aside from our main offices that I've just mentioned. We're right now focused around the SAP ecosystem, and with that, our platform we call AppCare provides the application management services and the full stack hosting services on that. So with SAP management, we can sit on top of the Azure cloud, and we provide all the monitoring, all the backups, the disaster recovery setup, all the design that is considered and required to run SAP in the cloud. So we fully manage that, and we provide that as a subscription service that is a monthly fee and provides SLAs on top of performance guarantees and response time with our help desk. That's called AppCare. We'll also talk a little bit later in the presentation around a new product that we developed a year ago called Protera FlexBridge, and its purpose is to help with the migration to the cloud, and we'll talk more in details on those. Along the 18 years that we've been in business, we've been focusing a tight relationship with SAP, and you can see those certifications that we have. Those started over 10 years ago, and most recently, about a month ago, we got the global certification, which includes 3 different audits over 3 months over 3 continents. So we're very happy to get that, and that certifies our services that we deliver for companies around the world. As Elaine mentioned previously, we take our relationship very strong with Microsoft to stay in touch and know the latest technologies, and we're going to be sharing that around Azure today to bring all these capabilities that are provided in the cloud for quick provisioning, the elasticity of the cloud, and bring that to the SAP solutions we're going to see here very shortly. And then also, I'd like to mention one of the tight partnerships we have that we value is around Susan. We're going to see some of those advanced features that, coupled with the Azure cloud, we can provide additional benefits and functions in SAP to run HANA. So a little more information on the AppCare platform and how this integrates with Azure. We're in a period of large transition in the IT ecosystem, and a lot of companies are looking at putting systems in the cloud. And as we all know, to do a migration, to move compute from one data center to another or move it to cloud, it's going to take months, and some companies may even take years. So we're going to have a period of time where we're going to have a hybrid model, where we're going to see a lot of private data centers or on-premise systems, which will still have to integrate to private clouds and public clouds. And so the integration and this idea around cloud brokering, where we can integrate many technologies, many systems in different areas, even within the same cloud, and provide a transparent end user experience, so the end users doesn't have to worry about where the systems are located and how they're connected and how the security is designed. It's all uniform, even over different different on-premise solutions in Azure, we can provide the same solution and standardize upon that. So these standard practices that we have with AppCare, you can see abstracted here in the middle. As I mentioned, the help desk already, and all of the services in those teams that are required to administer SAP optimally, that's all provided within our AppCare solution. Within the application support, we focus around the SAP ecosystem. So we have obviously all the traditional databases and you could say legacy systems that SAP has now. Our big focus, as well as SAP's, is around the in-memory computing. So we have support around the HANA latest versions. We're looking at version 2.0, as well as S4 HANA. We have many live examples, case studies that we're going to show here also running on Azure for those large systems and the migrations to get those into Azure. I also mentioned that we have integration within all these other products that tie into SAP, and these are a sampling of it. Active Directory is a very important component of your cloud strategy. You want to, again, make the integration of your on-premise systems seamless to your end user. So we can provide that single sign-on, that fluid log-on once when someone logs in the morning, and then they can get into SAP in the cloud without having to re-log in. So we obviously want to architect and design to Microsoft's best practices and utilize all the offerings that SAP has with all these integration points, which include SharePoint, Office 365, and a lot of the other cloud products that Microsoft provides for our end users. So we provide one seamless solution that integrates fully with the Azure cloud. This is the last slide on us. I want to spend a few minutes on this just to provide a little history of how we got here with working with cloud and also with the migration space. So as I mentioned, we've been doing SAP for 18 years, and most of those years, especially in the beginning, was focused around installations and helping with multi-year, multinational implementations of SAP and focusing on that design. So we have a lot of experience of working from the inception of the company, buying SAP, designing it, rolling it out fully throughout their company, which includes the sizing, the proof of concept, the testing, and all the the care and feeding to get that system live, and then to have it operational. And we've also worked a lot with systems that we will migrate from a data center into Azure. So we have a lot of experience with the migration space, and that comes from many years of even using and doing migrations from one data center to another. So we optimize and create our own set of best practices, always taking advice and recommendations from SAP of how best to do a migration and installation. But we've refined that, and that's the organic way that this FlexBridge product, which I'll introduce later, has been built. So a lot of years and iterations of improving the best practices to do SAP migration the best way. And as a AppCare, this cloud broker platform, the key aspect here is that, as we all know in the IT space, things continue to innovate and accelerate for improvements. And with SAP, with the in-memory capabilities, and to be able to expand to quickly install systems and quickly scale them up, it's essential. So we want to capture all these great attributes about the Azure cloud and bring those to our customers. And that's where our platform continues to innovate. And for the example here, specifically for Azure, we can see these attributes where with the flexibility of the Azure cloud to bring your choice of apps. And we'll see a little bit later what's supported by SAP. But also, as I mentioned before, all these integration points with the Microsoft Azure cloud, including 365. So these very quick ways that you can deploy on-premise solutions where you have Exchange today and you can quickly get this migrated into the Azure cloud. So we start off with that flexibility. The scalability part is the capability to quickly add compute for a system. So you can start a HANA system at small size in Azure, and as you grow a system or if you migrate more data into it, you can scale up as you need. So it's more cost effective, and you pay for only what you need at that time for your business. The agility aspect is around the rapid deployment, so you can quickly build from an image, set up HANA. You can start playing with HANA 2.0, the very latest version, and see how that can run on your data. And this can be done within minutes. And this is a key part to our migration services, So we don't have to wait for buying a server or having spare compute just waiting there for an installation to occur. So instead of this taking weeks to build these environments, it's now minutes, where we can quickly provision and automate the building of the network and all the security best practices built into it, and then to build the compute on top of it. So we're capturing all that, these aspects here into any customer that uses the Azure Cloud. And the security aspect, it's important to note that this is built into the solution. So it's being a cloud product in that environment, we're using all the best practices and the certifications and compliance that Azure has already built in, and we're building the SAP solution on top of that. So tremendous security that we're taking advantage of in the cloud. And all these topics, which these are abstractions, they're the highlights, there's many pieces to each one of these. At the end of the day, it all drives efficiency, and it's reducing cost and complexity, the standardized solutions, and building these best practices into the cloud solution for SAP. So with that, I'll close off that part of this, basically the perspective and the intro of Protera AppCare, and that's the idea of a platform in a cloud brokering. And we'll get into this other side here with the Protera FlexBridge later in the presentation. So we'll switch gears here, and we'll talk now about what can run for SAP in Azure. So as you can see, all the new product suites that are introduced by SAP are supported for Azure. You can see the Business Suite, which this first line you can see is non-HANA. So it's spelled out in the third line what is Business Suite, and if you haven't heard that term described, most people think of that as just the ERP system, yet there's ERP, there's the CRM, the SRM, the SCM system, and also Solution Manager and any variants of that core component of the ERP system. So the vast majority of SAP solutions fall into this category. And the other, it was most popular, the most prevalent early choice for HANA was our Business Warehouse, which is referenced here in number 4. You can also see the S/4HANA is already supported. We're seeing great adoption in that. We'll talk more about how to get there later in the presentation, that we're seeing great adoption already in that, and that's fully supported. Then you can see other scenarios here where we can do sidecar, and with HANA Live for analytics. This brings in the idea of doing the hybrid model. And as we'll talk later, there's companies that are already capturing the value of cloud when they bring in a new system, even though it's not a core module. So they're going to bring in the sidecar, for example, and they can hook that sidecar in the cloud back to their on-premise system. And it works very good performance and in production operation. So that's certainly an option, especially around the sidecar. And lastly, Business One. So that is already supported by HANA, and it also runs on Azure. So I wanted to note one important thing when you're going to put production systems into Azure is you have to have these criteria, and these are provided and or actually required by SAP. And there's a note that's on the top here that has more details. The big message is that to put production systems in there, there has to be proper support in case there's a problem that SAP has to look below the application. So if it's in the operating system or below in the networking, or maybe it's storage I/O, you have to have the proper support for that. So that's a requirement. Now for sandbox systems, things that aren't productive, we could certainly do a test proof of concept there. One question we do get quite often that may not be clear to customers and prospects that are looking at going to cloud is around what for DR and what's recommended there. And our best practice is that you would have the premier support in case there is a disaster. That DR system is going to run like production, so you certainly should have support. And as we'll talk later, that's one of the best use cases to start with cloud is around DR, and I'll explain that why a little bit later. These other 3 topics here around monitoring, network, and storage, those are really keen and focused around the HANA space, and we're going to see here in the next few slides some requirements around that. Be a little more descriptive. Key point here is there's some higher requirements for network, has to have a faster network for HANA, as well as the storage has to have a little better I/O. So we'll see that here in the next slide, actually. So these are all the options for running non-HANA systems certified by SAP. So as you can see, there's quite a few choices, and this is especially nice if you're going to start with some prototype systems, you want to build some sandboxes just to test out Azure, you can do this very cost effectively and spin up these systems within minutes. So these are the sizes here. You can see the SAPS rating, which basically is the grade of how fast that system is, how much it can scale. It's based on business type, the type of business and processes that are running that system and how many users are running there. So you can see this. And you can also see if the proper recommended way to architect that, if it's a 3-tier, and then also this idea around the storage types. And you can see this is all standard, which we'll see here on the next slide, premium storage. And it's simply described the difference between the two as better I/O performance. It's different types of storage on the hardware level. So it's a little more expensive, but certainly worth it for the higher demanding compute. So you can see these systems are a little larger size, higher capabilities around SAPs, and you can see the differences here in the architecture where the 3-tier support is fully supported for all these instance types. So if you're familiar with the virtualization and you haven't seen Azure yet, the term for an instance in the virtualization world is a VM, and that's exactly what's described with the compute in the second column. You have the compute, number of CPUs, and then number of size of the memory. So just you can see there's a wide range of compute available. And now finally for SAP HANA and S4 HANA. And you can see here the sizes, which go up to 3 terabytes. And then also there's a use case that can extend beyond that. And I believe the maximum now in Azure is 32 terabytes today. And that's specifically for BW. And so the way that's accomplished is they pair the systems together, and that's called scale out. So they join the systems together to act as one. For scale up, you can see that is only supported for the non-BW systems. So ERP and ECC, they can only run the scale up. You can see here that maximum today is 3 terabytes. So you can put quite large systems for HANA that could equate to, let's say, a non-SAP, a non-HANA SAP system to be around 10 terabytes today. So I say that in case you have a system under 10 terabytes, you can fit that system without doing any archiving or any data remediation, any data loads or changes there. You could go to HANA straight away on Azure. So before we talk about how to get to the cloud, let's talk about what customers are using today. And so we'll go through some of the typical use cases, and I'll describe some of the value we see here immediately. So our example with ChromaFlow is a company that has had SAP for many years, and we've been hosting them for, I think, about 5 years now. And they came to us wanting a DR solution, and so we instantly thought the Azure Cloud would be a great fit. And as I mentioned before, DR is a particularly good place to start with using cloud, just by the nature of it, where you can build a system that's small enough to keep your source system replicated. And we call this a pilot light. So think of the pilot light in your house and your water heater or a furnace. That doesn't run all the time. You have just a small flame, and then when it has to heat, it increases the flame. And the same idea around the pilot light is you're going to keep the source system consistent and replicated to the pilot light in the cloud, and then when you need to use it for a DR test or in the event of a DR situation, you would then scale up that server. So the cost to run DR is minimal 24/7. Yet when you want to do a test, you can just take a copy of that pilot light system, you would quiesce the replication for a few minutes, and you can spin up that test environment really quickly. So it's magical in that you never break the DR. So it's always replicated. You always have a system you can go to DR at any moment, and it's really easy to do a test. So you can do your DR test at a moment's notice, and you can even use that environment to copy your production system. So you could, in some ways, you could even get rid of the quality environment and use this as quality. There's a few trade-offs there, but the idea is that it certainly can be done. So a lot of value there. We encourage this is a great place to start. If you're looking to go to Azure and you don't have DR today, this is an excellent place to start. And this is something that we can get done in a few weeks to get that fully implemented and replicated. We're going to talk a little bit more about this next topic here around operations on the next slide. Yet we just did a migration for Elevance. We host them for many years. We just moved to Azure Cloud. And the nice benefit was it was a few-minute outage to get those systems moved over for each one. The way we did this is we set up the systems with a DR pair. So we replicated the systems over, and then when the customer decided they wanted to switch over, literally it's a few minutes outage, and then we have those systems operational in the Azure Cloud. So it was a very nice switchover. No impact to the users. We did that on a weekend, just a few-minute outage. And they're capturing all the benefits we mentioned before about the elasticity of the cloud, the cost savings, and the security are now all built into the solution. And again, the end users weren't aware that this huge change in their platform occurred. And then I'll talk here a little more in this next slide around Tate & Lyle. They're going live right now with SAP on Azure. So I will bring that up with this slide. So what's interesting about this use case is they've covered many, many areas. So strategically, Tate & Lyle is adopting cloud for all the operational efficiencies and improvements they can bring to their business. And so they're doing the HANA migration, going to Azure, and they're capturing that OS improvement, upgrading to SUSE. They're upgrading their SAP environment, so they're capturing all the business process improvements. And also they're going to cloud at the same time. So they're doing multiple steps in their roadmap, and we're going to talk about those considerations here in just a moment, but they're capturing all these values concurrently. So not only for SAP, but even for the non-SAP workloads they have, it's through their whole organization. So a very powerful strategic project that they've been doing for the last few months, and it's going to go to production, I believe, in Azure. I believe it's in June. I had the date proper. So, and that just started just a few months ago. So a lot of benefits they're capturing here from the cloud move in just a few months' time. And then to bring up Elevance again in ChromaFlow, I wanted to talk a little bit about the systems. When we think about where to start, I mentioned the DR systems. That's a great place to start for companies if they haven't used Azure yet. Again, great place. No outages to your environment. It's an add, so you replicate, and then you can use this as testing. So that's a great system type, and it could obviously work also for a non-SAP system. So if you have a use case there, certainly that would work great. I would encourage you to take a look at Azure Site Recovery. That's a really cool technology Azure has built into their cloud solution, and it works with on-premise. So you can take a virtualized system and replicate it, and they have the process within Azure is built where it's automated to build that replicate seed to go to Azure. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And then we talked about the production systems, all the efficiencies, the elasticity of cloud, the efficiencies of cost, and those values. But one last part I'd like to mention is around the prototype in these non-production environments. So internally, ourselves, we partner with SUSE, we provide this FlexBridge migration as part of they call the RPM, the way that they provide the software patches, our solutions built within the RPM within the OS. We've built all these packages and how we do the prototype of our development is all done on Azure, so we can quickly provision the system, do a test, and then do a copy for all of our unit and integration testing. So it's another good use case any software companies using for development in their agile methodologies. The development environments working on Azure works extremely well for quick innovation and prototyping. So we talked about the use cases and success stories here. Let's talk about the considerations those companies did when they were going to go to Azure. And these 5 trends, this comes from SAP, and they talk a lot about it at Sapphire. From the ASUGs that are leading up to Sapphire, they talk about the move to the hyperconnectivity and the big data and all memory computing and how SAP is going to provide these capabilities within the cloud. So we see this, we need to have real-time analytics available for mobile devices and have the systems that can provide that connectivity. And then the answer is HANA and S/4HANA. Now, how can we best provide that is with the cloud computing for all the reasons we described before. And to build in the platform all the security concerns with all the threats that every day we see in the news, more and more issues and threats, and even state governments foreign governments going after companies and attacking them for benefits. So we see that the threats are real, and we have to have a solution to that in IT. So you're an executive, IT manager at your company. You're probably thinking of these considerations today. How you're going to move the cloud, how you're going to do a hardware refresh, or should you? If you have a lease of hardware, or your hardware is aging out and now you can't upgrade SAP without getting a new OS, that's a perfect time to move to Azure. Take the money and invest that, save the money on the operations, and put the compute into the cloud. So these considerations for SAP upgrade and the upgrade refresh are good trigger points to look at the Azure cloud. So you can capture the cost reduction, the performance improvements, and you have an evolving, continuously innovating platform where SAP runs. And one of the shocking things about cloud that we're seeing is, as instances continue to build out, Intel and the chip makers are making better, faster machines, we see the cost savings come out in the instances. So we're not talking 3 or 4 years between generations of the new hardware server and capturing that. We're talking months. So when the new chipset comes out, there's a new instance available in Azure, and that instance cost is actually lower for more compute. So the model is changing very, very fast. So once you put your compute into Azure, you're in there, and you're going to continue to capture those continuous innovations. It's not just buying the server, hope you can get good 5 years out of it to really capture the money you sunk in day one when you started using it. So where to start? We have these challenges and the considerations. For SAP specifically, over the past 18 years, what we've done is we would go to a company, we'd send 2 of our experts on site, and we basically do an interview of that company and other SAP systems. We would look at what they run, how big the systems are, all the versions and the components of the software, and then anything that has to be considered around third-party applications and interfaces, development, all these considerations. So this would be a very time-consuming process, and there's not a lot of people in the market that can do this. So it's not something that continues to scale as we see with this market demand coming for going to cloud and HANA. So we knew this model is not going to work in the future. So we started thinking about how can we take these best practices that we run today and put this into software and to automate this. So that's where the idea starts. So the question, if you're looking to go to HANA in the cloud, is what SAP systems are supported today. And I think most people would be surprised by this chart. You could actually have a 4.6c system and migrate that up to the latest SAP release and go to HANA and the cloud at the same time. So that is technically possible. So this slide, although it's very complex, a lot of information in here, the point is that there's it's a very wide net of what can be upgraded to the SAP latest version and go to HANA. So this is specifically for R3 and ECC here, or you call it ERP. And then here's the remaining systems in the business suite, as I mentioned before: CRM, SRM, SCM. And again, that 7.0, that goes back a good almost 10 years. So it's a lot of system, a lot of systems. I'd say the vast majority, I'm guessing it's 90% of SAP customers are running these versions for these business suite. And then lastly, BW, same things, 7.0. So feel free. This information in the note that's shown here, so you can get this chart from that. Good place to start reference. So, is your system supported? If it's not to go directly to HANA, then you have to look at another method to get the data into Azure. Which brings us to this slide. So, the consideration to look at is if you're going to cloud and to HANA, you could go a deployment route where you're going to re-implement essentially and build everything anew, or you can look at a migration. That's essentially the 2 paths here. And we're going to talk more in these paths, much more detail in the options there. But this is where you have to look, and here's the considerations along each step. And so that's where we get into Protera FlexBridge here, this solution that I'll introduce right now. So when we talk about a checklist, that slide had some conceptual points. What I'm going to do is drill more into those in detail. And this offer, for anyone in the webinar, will provide this for free. I'm going to describe just in high level how this is performed, how we quickly provide this to a customer, and the automation steps behind it. So upon the finish of this webinar, you can go out to our website, you can register for this HANA assessment, and this runs on any ABAP system of SAP. You quickly execute this. It runs in 2 to 5 minutes, depending upon the size of the database. And as you can see, it's read-only. It's not going to make any changes to your system. Obviously, that would be a bad thing and risky. But also, I'll mention that it doesn't look at any business-sensitive data. So privacy, anything that could be shared outside a company should not be a worry. And in fact, the output file that's created from this report is in text, and the customer can see everything. So the business groups can take a look at it before it's sent back. Once that's sent to us, we will automatically generate this report, and I'll go through here real quickly what's provided in it. So what the scope of this assessment report is to look at that source environment, and we encourage the ABAP program I mentioned before is run on every system. That is going to be then considered and collected into this report. We're going to provide an executive summary that's going to detail all the considerations around a migration and upgrade and moving to cloud from a very high level. And then after that executive summary, we're going to go into detail, as we see for the source assessment, what you have today, what you're going to need to remediate. Maybe there's some patching that has to be done. Maybe there's some additional considerations around functions in your system today. Maybe it's an add-on that's not yet supported for HANA. So we'll spell that out just so you have some understanding of remediation steps that have to be done. We'll go through the migration overview. This includes the plan, the timing, as well as the sizing of the systems, and the pricing. So that will go through the methodology essentially of the migration, upgrade, and move to cloud all in one. Then it's going to talk about the proposed customer solution. And this is going to be specific for Azure. So you're going to get a diagram as well as all the instance sizes, what has to be built in the target cloud. So it's very specific to Azure. So if you're working already with Azure, you're learning more about the environment, this report spells it out very clearly of what's going to be built. And lastly, there's some additional information just talking about the cloud and the benefits of Azure and the cloud in general. Just make sure that customers capture the full value. The most interesting part that people like to see in the report is the source system. It's pretty revealing. We take the look like an early watch report, if you've seen this, where we have the traffic lights warning areas that we have to remediate. But it's really interesting to take a look at the categories that companies going to have an issue with or have to remediate before they do the migration. We just ran a report for a company that they realized that they had Java running on their dev and production, but they didn't have it quality for some reason. So they figured that out from the report. So for that issue, we actually have to do a quick remediation to separate Java from the ABAP system. But that was identified from the report, and they didn't know that. So we're going to get these information on the details and look at the remediation steps that's required. So let's go back to our deployment options here in these options. So if we look at the top path here, we can certainly look at a new implementation. So this would be for around S4. We see this more, being that S4 is new business process, new schema. That's a bigger step for a company. So we actually see fairly amount of companies doing a reimplementation. It's where they'd have S4 run in conjunction with their HANA system or their non-HANA system. So that's certainly an option to do the deployment. What we see in the market as being more adopted and the idea of being more accepted is around the migration path. And up till now, that's been a rather tricky and challenging option. So we'll go into more of these in detail in the next slide. The focus has been around lift and shift, and there's a lot of tools out there in the market today that will do byte-by-byte copy of the system and fully replicate what you have on-premise in the cloud. So certainly an option. It's a good way to get compute quickly into the cloud and capture. You take advantage of Azure. That's a good way to do it right away. So many options, many third-party products available. You can Google those and find them, and a lot of them have proof of concepts. So I encourage you to look at that to get things in the cloud very quickly. The disadvantage of that approach is that you're not capturing any benefit of going to a new SAP upgrade or going to HANA. You're just taking what you have running today, one place, and moving to Azure. So certainly an option, but the disadvantage is that you're not capturing the business values and technology improvements within SAP. The other option is around an OSDB migration. And in the past, with this option, you would look at you could switch from, let's say, the mainframe, and then you could now put this into SUSE operating system. So you can capture value and cost savings on a new platform there. The issue with that is if you want to do any of the other combined value of SAP upgrade or going to HANA, that's a separate step. So again, you can't do it in one. And the OSDB migration is a more rather complicated approach. So in summary, again, lift and shift. You can do these options, the migration options around system copy, you can do backup restore. There's a lot of options for third-party products to replicate and do those. So those are all certainly an option. That's going to provide you the value going to Azure. It'll give you all the cloud benefits. So that's a good option for going to Azure. For capturing Azure, going to cloud, and then switching out the database or operating system, you would do this OSDB migration. Yet again, you're not going to be able to go to a new SAP release without doing multiple steps. So a lot of choices. They're still rather limiting, which brings us to FlexBridge. And with FlexBridge, this provides it fixes the disadvantages in the two approaches. Either you do the full copy and lift and shift, or you do an OSDB migration. We've combined the best of both of those, and we provide it in our solution using SAP's tools. So using SAP certified tools, combining the benefits of those, we can provide all this in one step. So this includes the OSDB migration. We can go to HANA as a target. We can even go to a few other SAP-supported databases which run on Azure. We can do the SAP upgrade. We can even do the Unified conversion in that same step, and go to cloud, go to Azure all in one. So the key point here is you're taking these possibly multiple-year projects and combine them into one project that can be run in a few months. So how we do that is through three pieces. It's the methodology, the best practice we've been building up over all these years. We bundle that into software, which is the tools, and I'll talk about that in a moment, the tools piece, which are the white bubbles. And lastly, we wrap the methodology and the tool set with a service. So it's not just a portal that we give access to for the customer. We're fully supporting, and we're through the whole life cycle with the customer to answer all the questions, to make sure that the training is happening properly. We're working with the SI to make sure that the business process is being adopted. So it's not just, it's a warm handoff of all the processes through the migration to make sure it's being done to the customer's expectations. So the tool set itself, the software, is where the assessment, which I just showed, that's one piece of it. That's the first piece. The automation is the integration of the SAP certified tools. And lastly, it's the knowledge base, which stores all the problems that we've had in all migrations for all customers. And we build that to provide an automated feedback system where we can quickly fix the problems that we run into with migration. So it's the synergy, the combination of these pieces of the software and the services that provide the power here. So in summary on it, we have demos. We're happy to go through all the bells and whistles of FlexBridge separately. But in summary, reducing costs, reducing the time from the automation, reducing the risk from those best practices, and making sure the migrations are run exactly how SAP recommends, and we make sure it happens that same way every time. And from that, the complexity is reduced. We're increasing the productivity because we're doing this through automation and using the best tools. And we're improving visibility, and that the project managers always have visibility on each step of what's happening, as well as a dashboard so they can see what's going on. I think we're getting close on Q&A time, so I'll make this portion, I'll summarize, and then we've already seen some of the other slides, so I'll go through those rather fast. So the case study here, I mentioned about Elevance and around this migration. So in previous to the migration to Azure, they had their compute in the data center, and we had our App Care platform fully supporting them. Now, one of the great benefits of going to Azure was taking advantage of being able to make the copies of the system very quickly, to be able to replicate systems for new testing. So they're capturing that now. One of the other side benefits was the capability to connect their compute from Azure to all their offices through site to site. So they're leveraging internet connectivity. They don't have dedicated circuits. They have redundant VPN circuits, which they have already to their offices, but it's a very low-cost way to save on networking also. So it's not only capturing the benefits and the operational benefits of Azure, but also in these other areas of where they had to compute before and they had to have a direct connect for many thousands of dollars a month. They're saving that through a VPN site to site. So it's not just the compute; it's the whole solution that they're saving money on. It provides them that with the Azure move. We talked about the success stories already. Again, mentioned good use case for DR. Elevance is a good use case for the migration whole. And Tate & Lyle is capturing all the benefits with the HANA move, going to cloud, and increasing through the agility with the cloud capability. So they're capturing all that with this project that they have, moving their compute into Azure. And I want you to consider different use cases. So you got DR systems, you got non-prods, and of course the production environments. They're fully supported for SAP, so you can give it a try. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we're doing the assessments for free, so feel free, reach out to us on our website, and we'll get you an assessment for free. And with that, we can go to Q&A. We got a few minutes left, so I'll open it up. We had some submitted here prior to the webinar, so we can open the mic up, but if we don't have any, I'll go through some of the ones that were submitted already.
And I just unmuted the audience. If you want to ask questions, feel free to fire away.
Okay. Thank you, Elaine. So I got a few, and feel free to interrupt. I won't be offended, but I'm going to go through. We got a few that were submitted prior on the invite, so I'll tackle those. We got 5 previous to that, so I'll start with those, and then if this queues up any, please feel free. Don't be shy. So one of the ones that came in prior was around what SAP types of systems can be migrated, and this is more the question we covered about the system types. Right, you have the business suite, which is ERP, and all these flavors. The other part to this question, though, is more on the operating systems, which is a great point. I think people are generally surprised around the support that SAP provides in their tools to migrate. So we've actually done migrations from mainframes. We've done migrations from AS400. We've done migrations from Unix. So that includes predominantly AIX, HPUX, and Solaris. So there's a lot of capabilities even with I wouldn't say legacy, but non-cloud compliant operating systems to move them directly to Azure, and that's with FlexBridge. I haven't seen other third-party tools that would do mainframe, for example. Yet I say this so if you're considering going from mainframe to a hop, you want to go to Linux first. You could do that directly. Go directly to Azure, running SUSE for HANA. So it's a surprising thing for most companies that are running mainframe AS400 or Unix that they can do it without doing that intermediary step. Okay. Another question that came in was around the downtime and what to expect. And this is something that traditionally in the HANA space, if we're looking at migrating systems, even on premise, one of the last conferences I went to around HANA, the downtimes were measured in days. So we're talking 2 or 3 days the system was down. That's not even the business testing period or any quiescing of the systems, shutting off the data feeds. It's the downtime, technical downtime to do export import was 2 days. So what we've seen for systems under 5 terabytes, we can do that. 5 terabytes might be around 30 hours. I'm talking 5 terabytes target, right? So that it's a lot of data being moved over, but certainly most systems under 1 terabyte we can do within 12 hours. That's our golden rule. From that's our first runs. We can generally tune that down even smaller. So that's an area that we're focusing a lot of efforts on how we can optimize to shorten the downtime. But most of the migration and the upgrade occurs while the system is being used. So end users aren't affected. But we're focusing a lot of energy and brain power into getting that downtime minimized even further. A question also came in around what
Patrick,
source environments.
Patrick, I had to interrupt. We have a question actually about FlexBridge in the AM window. I don't know if you can see it, so I'll read it for you. Does your FlexBridge tool still tie to SUM or DMO tools from SAP, or is it its own thing?
So it's I'll answer saying it's both. We do utilize some in DMO, and there's a few other tools from SAP that we utilize, and then FlexBridge brokers essentially it sits on top of that. So the important message out of it is all the tools are supported by SAP. So if there's any error that occurs that we have to go back to SAP on, that would be the channel of avenue to go to SAP for support is it's going to be supported because it's the tool that's provided by SAP is where the error would be represented. So all the logs are intact. SAP support would come in through the same way. We haven't had many of those incidents. I mean, we have a few errors where we run into migrations, which are more new versions. That the first time we ever do a version on a new release of the upgrade package, we might see some bugs in it, and then SAP provides notes to fix it. But we've been fortunate in that we haven't really seen that issue come up in production. But so to succinctly answer the question, we do utilize SUM and DMO. Those are both tool sets within FlexBridge. FlexBridge sits on top of it as a broker essentially for managing the calls to the respective tools and also for this knowledge base and the automation of it. So good question. Hopefully that answered it. Was there any other link? Because I have two more here I can go through.
There's no other question in the AM window, so probably if someone wants to come off mute, feel free to do so or paste the question into the AM window. Otherwise, you can probably keep going, Patrick, about some questions you've seen in the past as well.
Yep. So the other one we got was around what is supported from a source. Does it matter if it's does it have to be virtualized or could it be bare metal? And right now, we work on the operating system level. We don't go deeper than that, so there's no requirement for it being virtualized as a source. Certainly, we can work with Hyper-V or VMware or OpenStack. All those are, if it's supported by SAP, it can be used as a source. But we certainly can also support bare metal, so that certainly is an option also. And then lastly, the other question, which we already talked a little bit about, was around how the migration is performed. So the key point is we want to maximize uptime. So when we start the migration upgrade, we're going to put as much into that as possible. And there's a lot of options around that. It's around the data and how we synchronize the data. That's some choices. But depending upon how aggressive we need that downtime, there's a lot of levers that we can apply, and that's the configuration within FlexBridge. We perform that. So that's the main focus. We hear two messages. One is the downtime, right? We got to minimize that, but also it's one downtime for all of these transformation projects. So you got the OS upgrade, SAP upgrade, move to HANA, move to cloud, move to Unicode if the customer needs to. So we can do all that within this one downtime. So that's where the customer's been focused. So those are the pre-submitted questions I had. Feel free, like this page has on it, you can reach out to us on our email or the website or through our social accounts. And as I mentioned also, we're going to be at Sapphire with Microsoft, so please look us up and bring all your questions, and look forward to meeting you in person.
Thanks again, Patrick. So if there are no further questions, we're going to stop the recording. Every customer who attended the call will be receiving a follow-up email, including recording of the call, along with a survey and the free FlexBridge assessment as well. So thanks again for your time, and have a nice one, everyone.